Welcome to the Joe Moglia Podcast, featuring Hall of Fame football coach and world-renowned business leader, Joe Moglia. Let's join the host of the Joe Moglia Podcast, Jamie Key.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're excited to be with you again for another edition of the Joe Moglia Podcast. We've got so much to get to. We've got world events, the economy, finance, sports. We got it all for you right here with the Joe Moglia Podcast. Coach, I know you've been up to a lot, and you've had you do it every year with your family in some regard in terms of vacation. Tell us what you did, where you went, and something you do a lot of and you enjoy it quite a bit. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, Jamie. Well, I went to, there's a place called Canyon Ranch that I've been going to for about 20 years. It was founded originally in Arizona by a guy by the name of Mel Zuckerman, and he passed a few years ago. And they have another one in the Berkshire Mountains in Lenox, Massachusetts.
Okay.
They've had a couple of others around the country as well. They're going to open up a new one in Austin, Texas. But it's a wellness place. It's just been the last couple of years where they actually serve alcohol. And for the last 11 years, made a bit of a tradition. I take my daughters, and we get there Thursday, we leave Sunday or Monday, so we have a long weekend. And then I do the same thing with my sons. I've got my 3 daughters and my daughter-in-law. I got my son, my 2 stepsons, and my 3 sons-in-law. So it's a little bit of a different group, bigger group. And they try to accommodate dad. So we all go on a hike in the morning, and then we go to the gym and lift. Then we all do what we need to do. I go in and get a cold plunge because I desperately need it for my body. And then we all get together for lunch. And we probably get the next 2-3 hours, you kind of do what you want to do. We usually get massages, then we have dinner. If the girls are there, we talk till about 10 o'clock at night. If the guys are there, we go play poker. It's kind of different weekends, but in all cases, now while they do have alcohol now, we don't have it. So there's plenty of alcohol enough in my family. So it's not like we can't live without it. So to be able to not have that and get good workouts in every day and cold plunges, et cetera, is a healthy thing for me. And it's great bonding with my kids and my family. And then I also go on my own. And I just recently was there also with the lady that I'm seeing, Shelley, and it was I really do enjoy it. And it's become a wonderful thing for my family and loved ones.
I was going to ask you, you're one of the highest demand individuals I've ever known all over the world. You go places all the time. You're in constant demand. And even with your family, it's so important for you to divide your time. And here you got your sons, your daughters, you got your girlfriend, everything's going on. You're trying to give everybody the amount of time to spend as much and do as much quality things as you can. I know it's very important to you.
It is. No, it really is. And I think what happens is, kind of growing up, I mean, I was busy all the time, so I was working. So, and as a coach, first summer before their mom and I had broken up, I couldn't get to see all my kids' games because I was coaching, I was recruiting, I was on the road or whatever it might be. So as time goes on, you realize, how precious the time is. And to me, it's important to be able to spend time with the people that I really want to be with.
You know what? Makes me, it reminds me of Coach Joe Gibbs, one of my all-time favorites, who said all his greatness with Washington and all the time spent sleeping at the facility and staying up all night with film. And then one day he went in and kissed his sons goodnight and felt stubble on their face. And it really dawned on him that, the time is so important that you spend. And that's something you've always made a priority for.
Yeah, agreed. So
I'm glad you had a good time.
It's important. You got to do it. You got to make time for it.
Absolutely. Hey, we want to get into some world events. President Putin from Russia was front and center at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum this past week with the heads of international news agency. And you look at what's going on there. They've got the conflict, war going on with, of course, Ukraine. And now Putin's trying to become a go state and basically looks to be playing both sides against the middle. What's your take on this? And he's kind of interjecting himself in it. What do you think in terms of the both sides mentality as far as the president?
Well, it seems like he's trying to position himself, as a real diplomat that's sort of everybody's friend and just has the world's best interests at heart. I personally don't necessarily believe that. I think he's got his best interests at heart and Russia's best interests at heart. He certainly doesn't have the Ukraine's best interests at heart. I don't think he's got the United States' best interests at heart. But for him to be able to step up and Trump acts like the two of them are buddies, but for them to be able to, for him to be able, Putin to be able to step up and try to be able to kind of talk about peace between the Iranians and the United States. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, he's having his own economic forum now in Russia. I think there isn't anything wrong with that. So I think what he's doing is a good thing. Now, whether or not that's going to have any real impact between the United States and Iran, that would surprise me. But if it did, that would be terrific. But, well, we'll find out. We'll see what happens with that one.
We will follow that one. Hey, the job market, it was a shocker, 172,000 new jobs, but the markets fell with all of the situation going on, new jobs added, unemployment holding steady at 4.3%. It sounds great, but stocks fell on Wall Street. Good news, bad news scenario because strong jobs data pushes the Fed lower. Joe, when Wall Street punishes good economic news, basically making, and leading to tighter money, what does that tell you about the bizarre environment right now everybody's negotiating?
I think the bottom line is remember the stock market is really a predictor of what they think is going to happen in the future, right? So in normal economic times, when the Fed is tightening, that's because they think the market is overheating. There's too much inflation. There's a problem. They actually want it to slow down a little bit. So if you want everything to slow down a little bit, it's difficult for the market to continue to go up and the economy to grow if the Fed feels it's got to tighten and slow it down. They can do that. It's 25 basis points, but over 4 years or 2 or 3 years, that could be 3 or 4, 5%. That could be a very, very big deal. So that's the rationale behind that. When the Fed is easing, then money is easier to get. It's easier for economic growth to take place, and the markets are anticipating that. So for the first time in a while, the future markets are actually predicting that the Fed will tighten before the end of the year. Well, just that rattles the markets a little bit, and we'll see what happens. I don't know that the Fed's going to tighten. The future markets have been wrong on this, by the way, a number of times in the past, where they said the Fed's going to ease when they weren't, Fed's going to tighten when they weren't, Fed's going to pause when they weren't. So that doesn't mean that the futures markets are right, but that's the concern. So if the market thinks that there's going to be in a tighter environment, it's going to be more difficult to grow. Now, you can argue against that, but that's the reason why I think the markets went down.
All right. Moving on to the war situation, the Iran deal. Are we finally at the doorstep? Boy, that's a question that it seems every day, depending on who you talk to, especially the president, we're right at the cusp of doing something. But now the 14-point memorandum of understanding with the United States and Iran, as it continues, the sticking point is, Coach, that Iran proposed a 5-year moratorium on the situation with the uranium enrichment, and the United States is demanding 20. Now they're talking 12 to 15 is what Iran's proposing. Meanwhile, you look at both sides, you say, Iran doesn't have a lot to stand on, but they're saying, oh, we want. And how much do you placate them, Coach, in terms of you're one of the great negotiators of all time in terms of the business world? If you were at that table, or giving advice to anybody at the table, what would you say should this be a non-starter and say, yeah, okay, we're going to be so flexible over something that could literally kill millions of people? But you think if Iran was sincere about it, they say, hey, we don't want anything to do with a nuclear bomb. Let's move forward in peace. But it seems like they still want to hold on to that power to do that. Your thoughts on what the United States should do in this situation as far as time?
Well, keep in mind that it's the Iranian radicals, it's the IGRC or IRGC, that are really running the country. Yeah. And they're the ones that are against the United States. They're the ones that are against the West. They're the ones that say death to you, to the U.S. And they don't want the United States to tell them what to do. They don't want to be able to hear that. And if they can hold out and eventually they keep the strait closed, eventually they get to $125 a barrel, and that oil lasts for oil, and that lasted for several months, that'd be very, very difficult for the world to grow economically. So that could lead to a global recession. So that's what the Iranians have sort of at their disposal. Now, having said that, their situation is not great. They're losing money. Things are not going well for them, but things weren't going well for them to begin with. So if they're really at 15 or 20 years, and we're really at 5 years. That sounds like a pretty easy compromise at 10 or 12. And Trump fashions himself as the best deal negotiator of all time. And, I think he'd be comfortable with that. Trump would like a win, ideally, before the elections. So if he can come up with a compromise that he can live with, a reasonable compromise that he can live with, I think he wants to wrap it up and move forward. But he has said we're near the end of this for the last 2 months at least. So, I don't know where we are as far as that goes. I worry that it continues. I said that a month ago. I'm saying that now. I still worry that is going to continue. But if they're really at 15 and 20 and 5, well, then there's no reason why they can't split that down the middle and live with that.
One of the things I take away from what you just said was not knowing who you're dealing with. If you remember back years ago, Jimmy Carter with Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat holding their hands up in the air and having this celebratory moment where they came to a peace accord, you knew who you were dealing with. Here, who the hell are we dealing with, Coach? I mean, literally, you got the radical version, you got the non-radical version. He said that, I didn't say it, you said that, I didn't. Who the hell are we dealing with, and who can really make a call here? And if they do, does it hold water?
Well, we're not dealing with the typical population of Iran. They would love to get this behind us, but they haven't. It's not a democratic country. It's a totalitarian state. The people that run it want to run it the way they want to run it, and they have very, very strong ideological beliefs that the United States is evil. So, I think the bottom line is the prime minister or whomever it is, somebody is communicating with the United States. We have somebody communicating with them. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to come up with some agreement. And I think the only person who's going to be able to approve that agreement in the United States is going to be our president. And I would guess that, Khomeini Jr. or his advisory group, or whoever they would represent them, they'd be the ones that represent them, would make that decision on their side.
You've got the supreme leader of Iran, an advisor calling Trump's desire to control Iran's nuclear program a fantasy. Israel reportedly threatened to preemptively strike Iranian nuclear installations if a deal falls short. How does the president negotiate a peace deal with his own Congress, an Israeli ally, and then the Iranian hardliners? You got all these different things going on. Now, you can hate Trump, love Trump, be in the middle. He's a negotiator, and as he says, he feels he's one of the great ones. But man, when you got all these different factions all wanting their own pound of flesh, or how do you negotiate that, Coach? It's got to be a nightmare, and it appears to be, because every time we seem to get close, they move the goalposts.
I think I do respect the fact that Trump made a decision to not allow the Iranians nuclear weapons. I think that's the right decision. So we're already in the middle of this, and he knows what he wants. I also believe that he really wants to get this behind them, because he wants to. He wants us to be successful with this, and he wants to see the markets rally. He wants to see everything kind of get back to normal, and the world have the euphoria that we had when we didn't have this problem. So, I don't know, Jamie. Nobody's going to agree with what everybody. He kind of went for the jugular on this, and he's going to have support in some areas. He's not going to have support in other areas. But I think if we got to the point where the strait gets open again, and Iran really doesn't have access to any serious nuclear weapons for quite a bit of time, at least, and then hopefully we have the opportunity to go back 5 or 10, 15 years from now. Trump could say, well, it won't be my problem 10 years from now. Somebody else can handle 10 years from now. And there is an element of truth with that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be tough as they're trying to work through it. And hopefully this week we have some good news. Moving on to the economy, Coach, the S&P 500 closed above 7,600 for the first time earlier last week, while the Dow hit 51,307. We're at record highs with the war in the Middle East, inflation running wild, the Fed likely to have some hike rates, the oil still elevated. This is counterintuitive as a market as you're ever going to see. From your experience running TD Ameritrade through market cycles, what's really driving this market higher right now, and how should, in terms of the worry, how worried should the investors be out there with everything going on in this very influx situation.
It's easy to argue both sides of the coin as far as the markets go. It's easy to think about the impact of AI. We have an administration that is supportive with regard to business. Impact of AI should make us more productive than we ever have been. Inflation has not gone crazy, but it's still reasonably under control. The earnings on Wall Street for the major corporations are coming in relatively positive. The financials seem to be doing well. Anything AI related seem to be doing well. You got quantum computing coming in now, that ought to do well. So there are a lot of things, there are a lot of things going on that you can say the environment that we're in is a good, positive environment. On the negative side, if we are going to have inflation, it's going to be difficult for the Fed to ease. That doesn't mean they're going to tighten. But right now, the market's concerned that they're going to do that. But the biggest issue is the geopolitical risk that exists between us and Iran. Nobody even cares about Russia and the Ukraine anymore. But the thing going on with Russia and Iran, and you can't forget Israel with that, is really pretty serious. The entire Middle East now, has issues. So I think we got to get that one behind us before we can actually relax. If we get that behind us, and inflation is reasonably under control, I don't think there'll be a chance that the Fed will tighten, and I think the markets are off to the races. But until that happens, we have a question mark and a bit of a cloud over our head.
All right. This week, Google's parent company, Alphabet, announced it would raise $80 billion from stock sales to fund its artificial intelligence buyout. Its stock fell almost 4% on the news. Meanwhile, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang called Marvel Technology a potential $1 trillion company. You're the only guy I've ever known use trillion in the sentence, so you know that one well. Sending its shares surging to 25%. Joe, in your Forbes article that you write so many great ones, this one was "Don't Fear the AI Bubble." You argued against panic, but with companies raising tens of billions to buy more chips to train AI to help them, where exactly is the line between a real revolution or speculative mania?
Yeah, no, I think people, when they talk about a bubble, they compare it to the dot-com boom. That was a bubble. But the dot-com boom went from 1994 to 2000. That was a pretty solid 6-year run. That if you were part of that at all, you weren't doing well. Now, it badly blew up between March 2000 and March 2003. But there were so many companies that were coming to market just because they call themselves dot-com companies that weren't making any money, that did not have good balance sheets, that ultimately blew up. And the online business, for example, most of them went out of business. We had when I began in Ameritrade, there were 200 online firms in the United States. By the end of 2003, there were 10 or 15. And the others were consolidated. We helped consolidate them when they went out of business. So where we are today, though, these companies are really the biggest, most powerful companies in the world with great balance sheets, with great earnings, generate tremendous amounts of cash. And they're all saying that we recognize AI is going to be part of the future and we've got to be part of it. So we've got to borrow some money now to do that, then we'll do that. But the more you borrow money, that increases your cost. And you haven't delivered yet. So borrowing money to deliver on this might be the right thing to do. I don't know that. I don't know that for a fact, but it might be the right thing to do. But these are pretty powerful companies that really have pretty good management and know what they're doing. So right now, I would bet that betting against AI would be a mistake.
Yes, I agree 100%. This one I really wanted your opinion on. SpaceX IPO is set for June 12th at $135 a share with a $2 trillion valuation. Elon Musk, of course, running the show there. When you look at this, is developing point-to-point travel, partnering with the U.S. government on a mission to the moon and maybe beyond. Have you ever begun, in terms of your thoughts, to value a company like this in terms of e-tail, retail, and all the different investors out there watching tonight? Is this a buy? Is this a wait and see? Will Joe Moglia buy any of this IPO?
The space exploration is a good thing. I believe, obviously, partnering with our government, I think that'd be a good thing. I think there probably is something going on in a galaxy that we're not aware of. And it'd be good for us to learn and understand what's going on there. Remember, it was 600-700 years ago. I mean, people thought the world was flat. They didn't know that. They literally thought you could fall off the end. Right. And so the reality is that I think this space exploration is very real and here to stay. That's going to cost a lot of money. We don't know what the benefit's going to be for a while. But right now, it looks very, very positive. And my guess as far as this particular SpaceX goes, my guess is when the deal comes at $138 a share, it pops. And but whether or not it's still at $138 a share, like a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't know. I mean, it could be $1,000 2 years from now. It could be 40. So I don't know. I'm not investing in it. It doesn't mean I wouldn't want to be, but I would want to be already invested,
right? Not
just jumping in now with the IPO.
Okay. I want to cut right to the chase for people watching tonight. Record stock market, SpaceX IPO next week, rate hike fears, war ceasefire, holding on to a thread, AI companies raising hundreds of billions of dollars. What is your single best piece of financial advice for everybody watching tonight? And the question for you, you've been consistent, AI. Is there something other than AI that you've got your eye on, and would you consider, or are you just going to stick with the AI mantra for right now?
I like AI leading the pack. I like the power centers with regard to that leading the pack. I still believe in crypto. Crypto has gotten really, really crushed in here, but I still believe that decentralized finance and the Web3 world and the rails upon which everything's going to work will be crypto. I still believe that. Now, everything else is wrong. Crypto has not. Crypto has gotten hit. So you could say I've been wrong on that for the last several months. But I don't believe the fundamentals for crypto hasn't changed yet. So the fundamentals change for the negative. I would just get out. I'll take a loss. I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll get out. But as long as the fundamentals are still there and the respective crypto gets hit, I would step up and buy. I bought some Bitcoin and Ethereum this week. Okay. I think the other place that I feel pretty comfortable with are financials. And I think, they haven't had a great last few years, but I think with more deals going to be coming, more IPOs, steeper yield curve, all those things are positive as far. And the Fed tightening doesn't necessarily hurt financials. And a lot depends on what happens with the steepness of the curve. So, I still like technology within that AI specifically. I like the crypto world. I like financials.
All right. We've got some great news, folks. Joe Moglia in the news, a segment we want to talk about. I know you love animals. I love animals. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this year, the Grand Strand Humane Society broke ground on a $12 million adoption and veterinary center, and they have named it the Joe Moglia Adoption Center and Veterinary Center after you. A remarkable tribute. For people who only know you from Wall Street, from the football field, what does this say about who you are off the field, and what does it say in terms of you giving back to your community? You've always done that, but man, you've had fields, the stadium's named after you. This is so special to the most, other than kids, animals can't help themselves, and here you are stepping up big time. What did you think of the tribute? Can you put it into words?
Well, thanks, Jimmy. I think it's not the Joe Moglia, it's the Moglia. So it's more for the family. I think the Humane Society really does do a great job, and they needed help for a long, long time. So they were good enough to give. I have an autistic nephew, the son of my brother who passed, who lives here, and he's worked for the Humane Society for the last 10, 11, 12 years, and his love for animals is matched by the love for animals many, many other people have, but he truly, bottom of heart, does that. So he was my inspiration. His name's John Moglia, and so that was what helped me pay attention to it. And I remember him talking to me 8 or 9 years ago, saying, Uncle Joe, this is really difficult. We have all these animals that people don't want, that are going to die. They can't, we can't provide for them. So I believe so. First, the Grand Strand community is part of my life. The area is part of my life. and animals and the care and prevention, taking care of those animals, are part of the people here that they believe in. So for me to be able to help out, in a small way is something that I'm very, very proud I can do and happy to do and honored to do.
Congratulations to you and your family. That's special. That really is special. You got
Thank
it. By the way, Joe Moglia is going to chair the 24th Annual Benefit Gala for young people who stutter. Joe, of course, grew up stuttering problem, and you've helped so many people. You're just such a inspiration for so many people that have dealt with that. Talk about what that means to you, and this event is very special to you.
Well, I think if you don't stutter, or somebody you're incredibly close to, if you don't stutter yourself, or you're not really close to somebody that does stutter, it's very, very difficult to understand what they're going through. I stutter. It's taken my whole life to be able to control it. It's still my biggest anxiety. Literally getting on air for our show, like in the back of my mind, I try to make sure I slow myself down. I want to make sure I'm breathing. I worry about that I'm not going to be able to get my words out. Now, I give commencement addresses, I give speeches, I'm on television, but I've struggled with this my entire life. When you stutter, very few people, most people that stutter think they're the only people that stutter. They're alone when they do that. And the Stuttering Association for the Youth and another one, the American Institute of Stuttering, they come together to be able to help people recognize they're not the only ones, and there's ways to be able to kind of handle that. So the fact that you have difficulty getting your words out, there's no shame in that. There isn't any shame in that. And they start to take pride in terms of how they're able to do that. So I've been part of the stuttering community really all my life. I've been part of SAY and the AIS, for probably 15, 20 years now. And I'm proud to be part of those organizations.
That is incredible, and congratulations on that.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Joe Moglia Podcast. Reminding you to learn more about Joe by going to the sensational Joe Moglia website at moglia.com. That's moglia.com. That's moglia.com. When you visit the website, you'll be able to learn more about Joe's schedule of appearances on CNBC as well as other speaking and television appearances. You can also read all of Joe's incredible articles featured in Forbes magazine. For Hall of Fame coach Joe Moglia, producer-director Rob Matea, and Joe Moglia podcast host Jamie King,